2414 is a podcast about finding hope and common ground through casual conversation. Like the friends on the road in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 24, verse 14, we want to walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. Thanks for walking with us.
What's up, listeners? How's it going? My name is Shane Welter. Welcome to 2414.
Strong, Shane. It's like you took 3 weeks to build up to that. That was
almost
long.
like I took a month to do that. Not quite. But welcome, listeners. Today, joined by Pastor Dan.
Hey-o.
Friend of the show, guest, whatever you say.
I used to be a co-host.
Oh, yeah.
Did I get demoted? I know it's been a few weeks.
Acquaintance now. You're an acquaintance. This is
wow. Provisional guest.
Yeah, special guest. That's what you are now. No. Well, today
on the Shane Welter Show.
No. We see the big logos.
2414. Welcome.
Yeah, 2414. Yes, today we're talking about a topic that's going to be in line with our church's Discipleship 930 hour. What do we call that? Bible study. That's what it is. Bible study. The name of this Bible study is called Can We Trust the Bible? And we're going to talk about that because I don't get to go to Bible study because it's at the same time as a rehearsal for band. So I have a lot of questions for you and what's in store. You want to give a quick synopsis before we're going to go to
Well, sure, yeah. So oftentimes when churches or Christians refer to Bible study, we're reading the words and the narrative or the poetry, and we're looking at what those words mean and what they mean for us.
Yeah.
But this particular Bible studies, we're actually going to be looking at sort of the Bible as object itself. So how did this collection of writings come to be? To what extent can we trust it? How was it created, formed, passed on, and how does that shape how we read and experience it today?
All right. I love it. Well, we have that to look forward to, but before we get into the juiciness of the topic today, we got highs, lows, and a question of the day, which we want you to model as well if you have conversations at home with family, loved ones, friends, and easy icebreakers, highs and lows. So,
yeah.
With that said, I'm talking, so I'm going to throw it over to you for highs, lows, and what is the question of the day?
The question of the day is, how many Bibles do you own?
Oh.
So you can think at home, maybe you have some at the office. How many Bibles do you own is the kind of overarching question.
It's going to be an approximate.
Yeah, I have no idea. We brought some props into the room, so if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see some of the variety of Bibles on our shelf. That I was very pessimistic. I thought the shelf was going to rip off the wall and make a giant mess.
Still might.
It absolutely still might. But so far, I haven't heard any creaking or drywall snapping.
If you're listening, there's a shelf behind us, and there's just several 40-pound Bibles on the wall.
Several, maybe a total of 40 pounds. Yeah. So how many Bibles do you think you have? And there's no prizes for getting it right.
No.
So I'll start. I don't usually start. So
yeah.
Lows and highs. My low, my ankle is sore. My left ankle.
Did you roll it?
I think a little bit running in the woods.
You think you did.
Most
people know when they roll their ankle.
That's true. So I went for a run in the trails last Sunday and didn't notice anything eventful. It wasn't like I crumpled, but there's a lot of rocks and roots and things I'm jumping over.
Yeah.
And it was fine, but Monday it was sore and it hasn't really gotten a lot better. So there's part of me that thinks, oh, maybe I kind of rolled it more than I realized. And there's also this part of me that is thinking, well, Dan, you're just old now and things hurt. Maybe you slept funny, and now this is your ankle forever. because that happened with my neck a number of years ago. Like I slept funny, and I guess like, well, yeah, you're old now, so you just get hurt because you slept too well one night, and now you can't look left very far anymore. And so my range, over which shoulder I'm looking, has really gotten limited.
Oh no!
So that's my low. Okay. My low is my ankle hurts, which is So I'm trying to be smart and not overdo it. 20 years ago, I would have said, who cares? I'm invincible.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, well, I would like to walk later in life, so maybe I should not push it right now. So I'm not running as a result. So it hurts, and I'm sitting around. So that's my low. A high, though, was I was listening to one of our previous episodes while I was driving somewhere, and I heard my own voice coming through my own car speakers telling me and the rest of the world how much I repeat my lows and I have the same bad habits, and I heard that and I was like, all right, enough is enough. So I've had much better routines in my life. Wow. Evening routines, morning routines, kind of getting a grip on my schedule. It might all catch up to me or come crashing down, but I've got several days in a row where I feel like I'm making the choices I want to make. I'm in control of my time, at least. Now I'm going back to my low. I'm not running, so there's this giant, 10 to 20 hour a week hobby I'm not currently engaging in.
Yeah.
So that once my ankle feels better, we'll see how well my schedule can hold up.
And how, if your lows start repeating themselves again.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to do too much in life.
Yeah.
And so my sore ankle has allowed me to explore other interests. Yeah. So that's low. Sore ankle, high, good routines besides running. How many Bibles do I own?
Yes.
Boy. So I'm like walking through my house right now. So I've got a little like a office where there's probably 2 or 3 there. In my bedroom, there's. Let me ask you: can we count like a partial Bible? Like if I have a book of Psalms, are we counting that? That's like it's just the Psalms, or do you want full 66 books?
Yeah, that was crossing my mind too. If you have like just the New Testament kind of books,
I think that counts.
I think so. It has the Bible in it. Yeah. At least a full book of the Bible.
Like that's primarily what it is. It's not just a story where it's quoting a verse. It's like it's the Bible. So, boy, so like 3 there, a couple there, so maybe 5, and then here's another weird question. I've got like a 6-volume edition of the Bible, so. Like it's the whole Bible, but it's in 6 different books.
Okay, all right. I think this is getting too muddy. So here's what I think: if it has either like the full,
I'll call that one. That set is 1.
If it has like at least 5 books of the Bible in one book,
all right.
that's
all right. I'll just throw out a number. I bet I have 50.
I thought it'd be higher.
You disappoint. You look disappointed. I'm sorry, Shane. I guess how many I read every day? Not 50.
All 50 of them.
You think? So, did you think for me as pastor, I'd have more than 50, or do you think you have more than 50?
Oh no, I don't have more than 50.
Okay,
but I just you gain so many odds and end Bibles.
Now I'm going to count. So my guess is 50. Ballpark 50.
All right.
That still seems like a lot.
That's
more. That's more than probably 20 times more than my next most frequently owned book. Like, how many books do you even have 2 of? Or maybe 3.
That's fair.
So to say 50 copies of the same book, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's just interesting because there's different translations, different versions of it. I guess, that's really interesting.
Now that's my follow-up question. What's your second most numerous book that you have?
Oh man,
mine's probably The Great Divorce. I think I have 3 copies of that for some reason.
The Great Divorce
by C.S. Lewis. It's an incredible book.
Yeah, I think I remember you talking about it. That's a good question.
That's not the question today. You can answer that last.
All right.
So Shane, low,
That's a good
high,
question. All right.
Low, high. How many Bibles do you have? And then bonus question: what's number 2 on the list? Assuming Bibles is number 1. Maybe it's not.
Maybe
it's Bach's collected cantatas is your number 1. You've got
that
14 copies of that.
I would love to if I could play piano. All right. So highs and lows. I guess I have a very scattered kind of set of highs and lows. But lows, I don't know if it's allergies or cold, but I had some congestion. quick high with that though. I took the NyQuil last night, knocked me out. Woke up feeling like a brand new man. I was like, wow.
I don't think you're supposed to take NyQuil for that, are you? You like Claritin is what you need, like some allergy medication.
I don't know what it is, but it worked, and I slept like a rock.
Did you get the new Super NyQuil? I saw a commercial the other day for like extra drowsy for when you really need to sleep. I was like, this sounds like it shouldn't be over the counter.
I think we got like the medium. When Lauren was telling me about it, she was like,
"There's orange, green, and then like off the chart when you really need to sleep."
Okay,
was it like a horse sedative?
We got like the orange and purple or whatever it was, but Lauren was saying there's like the
super,
there's like super mega, and then stuff with like alcohol in it. And I was like, can you do that? Like,
it's not good. It's not good.
So we got the middle one, and whatever, it worked, and I feel pretty darn good today. So it must have done something in my sleep, or maybe I just got good sleep, and that's all I needed in life.
This is what a rested mind and body feels like, Shane. Yeah. You're still congested, but you look great.
Nowhere near as bad as yesterday. So that's a win in my book.
NyQuil is your high.
Another high. I'm getting my hair cut after this, and I'm really excited. I need incentives to get my hair cut, otherwise I'll never cut it.
So I just came from volunteering at a local school.
Yeah.
And I was sitting down, and a fourth grader stood behind me and said, "Mr. Dan, why are you going bald?" Hello. Hi. Nice to see you too. Good morning.
Like, I know as a kid, like,
as a fourth grader.
That's pretty old, I think.
I didn't know what to say.
I hope I didn't say stuff like that when I was 9 or 8. But
I think it's because I'm so awesome. And she was really confused and just kind of walked away, and I felt like I won that round.
I think you won.
So you're going to get a haircut because you have hair. Thanks for flexing on me.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
It just comes in so thick and so rich, and I gotta I get it, Shane. I get it. Your back doesn't hurt either. I get it.
It actually randomly hurt when I was putting the Bibles. But I lifted back 2 days ago, and so it's sore. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know how to respond to half
Was that
this
your
stuff.
high or low? Your haircut was a high.
My high.
Okay.
I feel I'm excited because I feel so like disheveled and like terrible when my hair gets all shaggy.
Do you have the same person or same institution that you go to?
I do have the same person. Okay. I'll give him a shout out. John the Good Barber in Auburn.
Is that his nickname, like business name?
I think
or is
that's
that just what you call him?
That's his that's what he goes by.
John the Good Barber.
Yeah.
Is it John the Good, like a saint, like Shane the Wise?
I mean, maybe, but that's his name. That's what he goes by. Okay. He's awesome. He's really cool, super chill, and cuts hair awesomely. So
okay.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that. I'm sure there's other stuff, but yada yada yada. All right.
NyQuil and a haircut.
NyQuil and a haircut, I guess.
And allergies was your low.
Way to make me sound boring. All right.
Mine is my ankle's kind of sore because maybe I slept funny. I don't know.
All right. Bibles. So does in my office count? I guess the ones that I owned
if they're
and
yours
brought.
And not just storage from the church. Like you can't say 75 because there's a box in the corner.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I think just one of these was actually mine. That one because I got it from something. But I'd say I will combine Lauren and mine.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
What's yours is mine and mine is yours?
Yeah. It's ours collectively. So I would say probably around 10.
That's low. For a church for
So I'm trying
to
think
for a man of the cloth.
I guess we've got 3, 4 I guess more now. The national gathering the youth gathering Bibles they hand out. I've got a few of those, and I guess combined with Lauren and I, that's like 5 or 6, and then plus our own Bibles, plus some free ones we've got along the way. Yeah, I think around 10.
How many of those 10 do you think you've opened this week? We can edit out later if it's really if it's 0 or something.
I think there's my primary one. And I think last week I used the youth gathering one for songwriting. So
okay.
1.5.
1.5.
If you include part of last week, I guess.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
What's the number 2? Runner up?
Yeah, runner up.
What book do you have the most copies of?
It might be
second most.
one that I haven't read in like 10 years, but it's like the Guide to Music Business. Lauren and I own, I think it's just 2 copies of it.
Is it a textbook from college?
It's not, but it's like everybody who works in the music industry is like, you have to own this book if you want to know anything about the music industry. And it's very insightful. I started reading it and then, like 10 years ago, and I haven't opened it since. So
I changed my runner-up, Lutheran Service Book, the hymnal. We've got several copies of that at home.
I need a copy. I've got the old hymnals at my house, and I want a maroon one in my house. I got to get one.
My kids each have their own copy. And
Ingrained?
Yeah, it's got their embossed, I think.
Embossed.
Yeah.
That's the word. Ingrained. I don't know.
Engraved. But.
All right. I'm sure people are really excited hearing about our bummed ankles and allergies. So... So what are we talking about again?
I think this is when people tune off. I think people listen to the first 15 minutes and they're like, all right, now we're done.
All right.
That's what I came for. Came for the giggles.
Just wanted to hear all that. Yeah. Well, congrats. If you made it this far, thank you. But back to the topic at hand. We're talking about the soon-to-be Bible study series that we have. And I think some context to this might help, because I think there's a fair amount of people who attend St. Luke's for the church services, or maybe the school, or maybe whatnot other side, and they don't know about the different activities that go on a week-to-week basis, and especially on a Sunday morning. So I think when I got here, I thought, well, it's what we call it, the Discipleship Hour, right? That's what we call the in-between time from our 8:15 service to our 10:45. So at 9:30, there's a Bible study in the Great Room, which is the big newer looking area past the Welcome Center and through the double doors. And then we also have a thing called Summer Serve going on, but
so during that 9:30 hour, kind of in between services, not every church offers something like this, but we really value it. I think it's typically called Bible study. There's a lot of things that I say or value that don't catch on, and that's just okay. I accept that. Yeah. But I typically refer to it as the Discipleship Hour, because Bible study sort of assumes a couple things, or it implies we're just studying, and we're just studying like pages of the Bible. Yeah. And those are both good things, and I really value both of those things. But I think a group of Christians could get together and encourage one another to prayer. And we could talk about praying and share experiences praying and practice praying. But that's not the Bible. That's not a Bible study. But that's part of like discipleship, is being shaped as a follower of Jesus. And so that's why to me, Discipleship Hour is broader. We are engaging in something intentionally to grow as followers of Jesus. So sometimes that is studying the Bible, but even studying sometimes kind of implies like there's a test.
That's true.
There's not a test to get in. And yet I want to know God as he is and makes himself known. I don't stalk people, but the people I care about, I want to learn about them. I want to get to know them. Like if I never bothered learning your wife's name, like at some point, like we're not that good of friends. Like
you don't know.
I'm like that woman you're always with. What's her name again? I don't actually care. I don't want the details. Like no, to care about you well is to know that your wife is Lauren.
Yeah. So are you saying the same thing either?
So study. So like the word study has baggage of like I'm reading a book or memorizing dates, and it doesn't feel very relational.
Memorizing verses, like yeah.
So discipleship to me is more of like it's a broader term that says as a Christian I want to grow. So during that 9:30 hour we have this Bible study hour, Discipleship Hour, and it's a time for people to. Sometimes it's more of a lecture. Sometimes it's very small group discussion. Sometimes it's very hands-on or practical.
So it's kind of just a mosh posh of learning and growing together. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a variety of topics. Yeah, we just finished a series looking at death and resurrection and planning a funeral and estate planning. And hey, if you don't plan your funeral, your relatives are going to, and they might make it weird or not what you wanted at all. And so let's make some decisions.
Yeah.
And what is it we believe about the body and soul and life and death and resurrection? And
did we have a title for that last?
I jokingly called it "You're All Gonna Die," and it kind of got uncomfortable. But I was like, well, it's true, so let's be honest about it. I started, more about like, hey, what do we believe about life and death and the resurrection?
Yeah.
So it didn't have a title. My internal title that I shared most weeks was "You're All Gonna Die."
Okay, that's very hopeful and uplifting. With that being said, this next one.
Yes.
So we're calling it Can we trust the Bible?
Yep.
So I guess you've spoken a little to it, but you want to speak to the title of it at all?
Yeah. So can we trust the Bible, or we could have called it, what is the Bible, or how we got the Bible? I don't mean for it to be like too provocative of some kind of. It's not a clickbait title to try to trick people into coming, but it was trying to recognize, at least for many Christians and for people who aren't Christian or maybe used to be or are considering it, one of the main questions, it's more personal than how did the Bible come to be? Like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But can we trust the Bible takes that question of how did it come to be, and it kind of drives it personal.
Well, when I hear the name, how did the Bible come to be? I'm expecting a 28-part, it all started back, and you just trudge through the step by step. But I don't know, with the name Can We Trust the Bible? I don't know. At least when I hear it, I think of what's the credibility? What is the historical pieces of it without going through every single.
So it's not just a history lesson, but there's history, and it has a kind of a implication of personal import. So the word trust implies this question is asking something of me, and maybe it's even expressing a question that I'm asking of the Bible or of a faith.
Yeah. Okay. And so, this coming Sunday, so I guess when this episode releases on Saturday, the following Sunday, June the 4th, will be the first week of this. So what are we planning on discussing? Well, actually, I'm going to back it up a few more steps. With these discipleship hours, again, I haven't been to one before, so because it's always during the rehearsal times. So do you have to sign up for this?
That's a good question. Yeah. So no, just show up. Many weeks stand on their own. Many series kind of build on each other. So you can miss a few. You can just show up. I will usually try to recap, get first 5 minutes of a running start of where we've been, at least to set the stage. It's open seating. There's no attendance. There's a combination of chairs around tables or chairs in rows. Sometimes we use screens, sometimes not. It's probably more lecture heavy initially to get the ball going, and then we have conversation. So I'll call on people who raise their hands, and people maybe just shout stuff up. So I might ask some open-ended questions or some directed questions, or just say, hey, what have you heard, or what questions do you have? So it's a chance for people to engage and participate.
And do you have to bring your own Bible, or
good questions.
have their handouts?
So I will often have a handout. They're usually pretty minimal. I like to doodle when I go places, so it's usually just I might have an outline or a few key things, but it's more of I listen and think more actively if I have a pen and paper in my hand.
Like something to look at and just fiddle with. Yeah,
even if I'm just drawing a picture, or I like that word, or that prompted a thought. So people who like to take notes, you should bring your own pen. We sometimes have Bible, like a cart of Bibles in the back. We're not actually going to be reading a whole lot from the Bible. We will a little bit during the series.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do the work to have this images up on the screen so you can follow along that way. Yeah, you can bring your coffee, bring your water, bring your tea, get up and leave, go to the bathroom.
So it's very casual.
Yeah, it's real laid back.
Okay.
Right now, coming out of COVID, we probably had an average for the last year of, 50-ish people.
Okay.
Week by week, and it kind of fluctuates who's there on a given Sunday. I think when people are interested in a topic, we'll have closer to 90 to 100 people in there.
Okay. And I remember you saying the seating arrangement. I think you were saying there's tables, but is the room set up like a church where like there's just chairs lined up and there's some tables, or is the whole room tables? Everyone's like circled kind of. Yeah,
it's so I, as the teacher, speaker, lecturer, I'm standing up front. And so the room is, I don't know, how would you describe it? Like horizontal? So it's not like an old traditional church with like a long room and I'm way at the front.
It's a hamburger, it's wide.
Can I say landscape? If you like a landscape picture?
Yeah. There you go.
So if you have a landscape piece of paper, your standard 8.5 by 11, is that A4? I don't know what that's called. If you have a piece if you take a 8.5 piece by 11 and draw a line across the top about 3 inches down, and then right in the middle of that is where I stand. So I don't know why I have to do it like that. So yeah, it's oriented that way. The middle of the room has like 7 rows of chairs, 7 across on each side of the aisle. So 7 by 7, 7 rows deep. And then on the wings of the room, there are 4 round tables on each wing with 6 chairs around them.
Okay, so you have options.
Yeah, you have options. Some people stand in the back. Some people disconnect a chair because they don't want to sit by that person. It's real fluid.
Very fluid. Okay, good. So all right, now back to what I was saying before. This coming week, so this is going to be a multi-week kind of series, right?
Yeah, right now I'm planning about 13 weeks would take us from this Sunday up to Labor Day weekend, and then kick off something new in the fall.
Okay, so there's a lot planned. So what do you have planned this week? Or like tomorrow, or not tomorrow.
Yeah, for Sunday. Yeah, the day after this drops. Drops, is that what the kids say?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Drop kicks this Sunday.
Yeah. So kind of introducing the question topic of can we trust the Bible? What are some of the issues that we're going to address? So kind of outlining, if this was a university, it's like going over the syllabus a little bit. So here are the kinds of things we're going to cover. I want to hear from the people in the room. What are their questions as it relates to the reliability, trustworthiness, the historical kind of formation of the Bible? So I want to hear what people's questions, kind of pre-existing questions are. Yeah. And I'm also going to share some other questions that maybe they haven't thought about. Or maybe we're going to come with the very same expectations. I don't know. But I want to acknowledge, yes, that's the kind of thing we're going to talk about, or that's a good question. We might touch on that, but maybe here's another resource, or just no, that's not actually, we're not going to get into that this time. So don't be disappointed, or you can be disappointed, but don't be surprised. So I'm trying to set expectations and help the thinking process, some sort of shared vocabulary of what is it that we're talking about.
Gotcha. Okay. So I think, you said that well. I think I'm imagining like first day of class, like this is what to expect kind of moving forward. But I like, it sounds like some of the fluidity of it might kind of not change the course of where the series will go, but depending on the conversation, the things might kind of change to steer towards that.
Yeah, so it's not, and we're free. I don't have to be done on September 3rd. There's no external force that's requiring that. Yeah, I also don't want to have 19 years going through one topic. I don't want to beat the dead horse. Yeah. So there's some freedom to say, hey, if we're more interested in this thing and we spent a couple weeks on it, but people want to dig in more, we can do a couple more weeks on that. We can keep going. Or if there's things people aren't interested in, we don't need to linger there. But this question of how we got the Bible, or can we trust the Bible, it's really, it's very broad. It touches on a lot of different things, and each of those things, multiple PhD dissertations have been written on. So it's sort of like infinitely deep and really, really wide in its kind of the depth and scope of what it's going to touch on. So
Okay.
I want to give an overview of lots of the topics that are going to go into this question with sort of sufficient depth for each. But recognizing for any one of these topics, you could spend a lifetime studying it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very unsatisfying at times because we're not going to go as deep as you maybe want to go. But for other people, it's like, this is way heavy and academic, and we're going deeper than I ever even imagined going. So it's kind of a big topic.
Yeah. So, well, do you think you could kind of, I feel like we're talking about it very, like, I don't know.
You want me to give you some of the
surface-
topics?
Yeah. So we're talking about it very like surface level, like as if we're not spoiling. But I think in some ways, like,
It's okay.
I think we could dive in.
So maybe I'll just kind of go through. So I gave Shane, you have in front of you and listeners, we've got a couple of pieces of paper in front of us. Man, oh man. My kids have been doing tongue twisters recently for fun. And my brain just freezes up. I get the pinwheel of death.
The pinwheel of death with the pieces of paper with
Yeah.
the Pied Piper.
You got it.
pickled.
So one paper I have in front of us is kind of my handout for this Sunday, but the other one is sort of the overview of where I'm imagining these next 13 weeks going. So this kind of talks about some of the things I'm expecting to cover. So
Okay.
this week we're going to overview, set the table. After that, we're going to look at some of the documentary evidence, for lack of a better word, outside the Bible. What are maybe some non-biblical sources that talk about things of the Bible as a way of reminding us or grounding the conversation that Christianity is not primarily a philosophy or a set of morals or ideas. It purports to be something that has happened in real objective history. And so just to enter us into the world of real history, here are other historical documents that talk about some of these things.
So are these historical documents, are they like in line with like the events that like happened like within the Bible? Like this also happened in the Bible. Here's this historical document that's real parallel with this, or is it?
So a little bit. So there are, again, each of these things is so huge.
I mean, like I imagine it depends on what.
So one of the things I'm thinking about is in the early centuries of Christianity, at different times, Christians were being persecuted.
You say early centuries.
So like I don't know, 200 AD.
Okay.
150 AD, 300 AD.
Okay. All right.
So 1800 years ago. And so there are a couple of letters that are preserved from some like Roman overseer who's writing about what's he supposed to do with these Christian people. And he's describing their situation, like, all right, like I'm trying to get them to renounce their faith in this Christ guy and worship the emperor instead. But man, they just keep showing up early on a certain day of the week and they're singing to Christ like he's a god. And they're like making pledges to do good to other people. And this guy, like, he doesn't like Christians. The whole point of the writing is like, how are we going to eradicate this mess? But as he's describing the problem, he's giving us a really cool picture into what the first Christians, how they behaved and thought and believed.
And from what you've read from it, is it very like not hypocritical, but like these guys, they're doing all these good things, like they're being nice to each other. I can't stand it.
That's part of it. Yeah, it's confusing because it kind of makes you nervous.
Okay,
and you get glimpses of what some of the early Christians believed and thought because. Some of like the Romans would call them atheists because they wouldn't worship Caesar. So if you're not acknowledging the Roman gods,
interesting.
So you're an atheist. Other times they thought they were incestual because they called each other brother and sister, and so he's sleeping with his sister. Like these Christians are. Atheistic, incestual cannibals because they purport to eat the body and blood of Jesus.
And this was like, I guess, in a time when this wasn't a thing. That's just so like interesting to like think about. Like,
so their reputation, but that's what they were known for. So they weren't going around wagging their fingers at everybody. Yeah. They were known for loving each other and having convictions and worshiping and singing and like treating each other fairly. And anyway,
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to look at just a glimpse of some of that literature to help situate the whole question about the Bible, remembering that it didn't fall out of the sky, but there's a whole kind of narrative of history that this is set in.
And I'm gonna play dumb here for a second, but so like who's this guy who wrote the Bible?
Right. Yeah, good question. Yeah. So the Bible was written by. So those are some of the things we're going to talk about this Sunday. So I don't.
Okay.
I can give you a little bit here, but
Yeah.
I want to spend time this Sunday morning with these almost like sentence starters. The Bible came from fill in the blank, and not necessarily fishing for a right or wrong answer, but I think different people would answer that very differently. And maybe the same person would actually answer that differently on different days. Mm-hmm. So if you're reading the Gospel of Matthew, you can say, this was written by Matthew. But Christians would also say, in a sense, this was written by God himself. Mm-hmm. Other people would maybe say, it was written by a collective group of people, or it was written by the church for like some power purposes, or it was written by dozens of people over time as culture and values and opportunities changed.
Gotcha.
And so, there's sort of a historical, documentary way we can look at that question. There's a theological, more abstract way we can look at that question.
Yeah, and I don't want to spoil things or derail, but I remember I've talked to people like who've had that theory or some of those theories before. Yeah. I'm just like the gospel is just written by a collective group of people to form this narrative. Like, I don't like. Do you think you'll kind of go into like that? Like,
yeah, we'll explore a little bit.
Okay.
One of the challenges is what evidence, like, I don't mean evidence like we're winning an argument, but what is the historical data like that's available to us? Mm-hmm. So what facts are available, and it's probably going to be frustratingly limited.
Yeah.
Up until, 15th century or so, there was no movable type, no printing press. So everything that we have written down from before that was handwritten and hand copied. Mm-hmm. And they only wrote about certain things and they didn't record everything. So we'll look at some of that. There are traditions that, that maybe the church has passed on that might be true, but maybe there's not a whole lot of hard evidence. It's also, especially in our world today, it's really easy to be skeptical.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to say, just to have some, whatever the theory that you don't like, you can have any theory, whether, I'm thinking about like the moon landing right now. For whatever reason, that seems like it's a hot topic.
It's always now, I guess.
So like, whether, NASA went to the moon or not, it's really easy to say like, no, never happened. That's just a government conspiracy and a big lie. Mm-hmm. And you don't actually have to have like data to just downplay something.
Yeah. You can just say, I don't think it happened. Like,
right. Oh, okay. So like, where do we go with that? So it's not like there's a whole lot of, anyway, it'll be interesting. So to the person who says, the Gospels were written by a bunch of people over these centuries. Yeah. Like, do you have any like kind of hard evidence data that we can look at? Well, no, because that's part of the conspiracy, because the powers that be did this.
It's a really interesting thought that just like
a lack of data.
You can always say anything, and that's part of the theory of it. Like, I think that makes me appreciate what this is too, because it's like it's not looking at all the like, I don't know, the antagonizing point of views of it, but it's just looking at, here's the facts, here's the data of things. Like, this is what we know.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, as much as I'm able, try to be really balanced and fair. And here's where there are very hard questions. Here's where there are unanswerable questions. Here's where maybe there's kind of actually a clear answer, and it's not a comfortable answer. Like there's I think. So if anybody's listening to this and they're wondering, should they come or not? you might not want to. So if you have a really neat, tidy view of things that you don't want to have wrinkles or challenges in, this is going to be really challenging. It's going to question a lot of Christians' assumptions.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be provocative. I'm just trying to be realistic that it's complicated and it's messy.
Yeah. But
I'm not trying to win an argument. I'm not trying to make a case and like build a straw man of one side and say how that's obviously dumb and this is obviously right and you're a bad or a stupid person if you don't see it my way. Like that's not going to be the tone at all.
But I also think that that's set well through the title of it. Like you said, this could have been titled "Why the Bible is True," or it's like, no, can we trust it? And that just seems like a very neutral Can we? But
at the same time, I'm not going to pretend to not have a bias or a horse in this race.
Yes.
I believe it's true, and I believe we can trust it, and I believe it brings life. So this isn't. I don't want to pretend to be we're just going to neutrally explore this. No, I'm coming from a very clear and intentional perspective, and I think we can look at this, as objectively as anybody can.
Yeah, and. Sorry, I had a random thought that I'll just kind of, I don't know. There's no transition for this. I was just looking at the handout for this coming week. I see a lot of key terms and
some really weird ones.
Yes, and some ones that I don't know how to pronounce.
Yeah.
So do you want to speak into some of these ones that might help kind of coming in?
So,
so the first one I see, autographs. So you're saying like LeBron James signing,
get LeBron's autograph.
I've got an autographed book of Luke.
That's good.
Collector's edition.
Collector's edition. Yeah. So as we talk about this topic of how we got the Bible, can we trust the Bible? I am not trying to use fancy words to impress anybody or to make the people in the room feel smarter than their neighbor or to make anybody feel dumb that they don't know these things. Mm-hmm. My assumption is that no one, there's no expectation that anyone would have any background knowledge in these things. Mm-hmm. And you can be a great Christian and have never thought about any of these words. And I believe the Bible, or I believe God speaks in the Bible, or even I don't know about the Bible, but I believe in Jesus. Great. I'm not trying to take that away.
Yeah.
But if we're going to talk about some complicated things, precise language is usually going to be really helpful. So the more technical or the more focused you're looking at anything, you just have to speak more precisely. So if you're talking about a guitar, you might tell my youngest child, these are the strings and this is the fretboard. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to say all right, now play that's a D. He doesn't need to know that's D.
Yeah.
But if you're giving guitar lessons, at some point you need to know there's a high E and a low E.
Yeah.
And here's an A. And these are half steps.
At some point you have to get more technical.
Right. You can just say the white dot, and you count down. Or a piano, there's the white ones and the black ones, and you look that's fine for a while. But if you want to have any kind of proficiency or talk to another pianist, you need to be able to say F sharp.
Yeah.
So
I have to know what it means at some point.
And so I don't. So language is weird and vocabulary is weird, but so a couple of these words that are just maybe intentional. So the first of the key terms that we're going to talk about all these on Sunday is autographs. So that's a way of describing the original. So we would often say the original. Uh-huh. So the original Gospel of Matthew. Mm-hmm. So whether it was Matthew, whether it was somebody else, whether somebody dictated it and a scribe wrote it, like the pen on the paper, mm-hmm. that first edition, so to speak, is what we would call the autograph.
Okay.
So the think about LeBron, the pen on paper, that's the one he himself, with his actual hand, he wrote it.
Okay. Okay.
So that's what we mean by autograph.
Interesting. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know any other highlight ones.
Why don't you pick one or two more?
Okay. There's this there's this one, I'm going to sound dumb, Septuagint. Okay.
Often abbreviated LXX.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
For 70.
Septa. Okay.
Yeah, Septa.
Okay.
So yeah, I actually have a part of that over there. That's in our over there. Septuagint. So the Septuagint is one of the first translations related to the Bible. So the Old Testament, or the Jewish Bible, or the law, the prophets, and the writings, the Tanakh. What Christians would call the Old Testament was written mostly in Hebrew and a little bit in Aramaic. Aramaic's kind of a cousin of Hebrew. It's like New York English versus Alabama English. Like they're both English, but there's some differences.
Yeah.
So the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, basically, and there was a time when the Hebrew people, realizing as they were moving and living in different cultures, their kids didn't know Hebrew. And so it's like a lot of like immigrants. You come to a new country and you, within a generation or two, you lose your language.
Yeah.
So I actually was just volunteering in a public school, working with, it was amazing. This one little boy who mainly speaks Spanish. He's from Mexico. And this one little girl who speaks, she's from Afghanistan. And so Pashto,
Arabic?
I think Pashto is what you said. I don't know. Sorry. But they speak different languages, and great. But chances are, if they stay here, their kids are going to speak it less, and their grandkids probably won't speak it hardly at all, unless they have a very tight community.
Yeah.
All that to say is Hebrew was the language of the Old Testament, was the language of the liturgy and the worship services. But as they were in cultures that spoke less and less Hebrew, at some point they realized we got to put God's word into the vernacular. And so they translated the Old Testament from Hebrew into Greek.
Okay.
So the Septuagint is the Greek translation of the Old Testament by Jewish people. So yeah, it's kind of a major undertaking to say, even just conceptually, can we translate this holy book into other languages? And does it still count?
And was that the first? The Septuagint, like was that
at least the first major one? Maybe there were some other things that I'm not aware of,
but the first the mainstream. I don't know. At the time,
maybe there were some like very local expressions of people doing it differently, but that was sort of the first even conceptual. Oh, I guess we could, or maybe even have to, take this book of sacred writings and put it in language that people can understand.
Was this before the New Testament?
Yep. Okay. So this was I don't have the dates in front of me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's before Christ, before the New Testament.
Okay. And why? What does 70? Do you know why?
So there's kind of a story, and it's not true. So this is one of those weird things where, life is messy, and so the name comes from this like legend of, I think there were like 70 rabbis or scholars who each went in their own room and translated the Hebrew into Greek, and they all came out and they were all the same. And so therefore we know this must be this divinely inspired thing because these 70 people all came to the same conclusion. And it's just not what happened.
There's no historical.
That's not what happened. But that's kind of the anecdote. And so
interesting.
So if that pops your bubble, I'm sorry. You've got like King James only and Septuagint only people. Like it's not what happened. But the name stuck.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a cool name, Septuagint.
Yeah, and it's always because it's such a weird name. It's just abbreviated LXX for 70.
Yeah, and there's a word on here. Again, I'm not going to cover every word, but it's just some of them are fun. I know what this one is, but I think it's fun for people, I think, to know. But this word papyrus, I think most people might recognize that as a font.
Papyrus is a font, yeah.
Yeah, it's not the prettiest font in my opinion, but
you can even see the modern equivalent, PAPYRUS. If you just look at PAPYR, it's not too far of a jump to see paper.
Yeah,
there.
I never made that connection.
Yeah, so papyrus was early paper It was reeds that grew, so a plant. So even now, if you find like a thick blade of grass and you pluck it, you can see the veins going up and down almost.
Yeah.
So papyrus was a certain reed, a plant along the Nile River, where they would take this plant and they would overlay. So if you pictured like a blade of grass, if you made that really, really wide, so instead of being a centimeter, picture, a foot wide. And then if you took another one and overlaid it going the opposite direction, like crisscross, like a checkerboard, and then through various processes, you would press that and it would become something of a malleable surface akin to paper today, that you could write on.
And okay.
So that was what scrolls were written on.
So then
early paper.
And then they roll that up.
Yeah.
When I think scroll, I mean, is that still an accurate kind of?
Scrolls were rolled up. Yeah.
Okay.
But imagine if you had this oversized novelty grass paper. If you took like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, maybe that's way before your time. But if you took that blade of grass and you magnified it, like you can feel the ridges on that.
Yeah, I imagine.
Now imagine using like some kind of primitive writing device and writing on this.
How do you even
It's not pretty.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
It's not like paper now, which is, it's in some ways, it's very similar. You can hold up like this paper. If you hold up yours to the light, you can see something similar to the kind of maybe you can't.
Yeah. No, there is like a.
You can recognize this is a natural product of sorts.
Yeah, it's not.
We've refined it through chemicals and technologies vastly, but papyrus was a very primitive paper that was used for writing. And so I've got a bunch of images we're going to look at this week, and probably most weeks I'll have a little show and tell on the screen of seeing some ancient Hebrew and Greek manuscripts, and you can see the texture and you can see how the ink plays with the. And
I don't know if this is true or not, but I remember hearing as a kid the Dead Sea Scrolls. As a kid, I always heard that they're the oldest manuscripts we have of like the Bible. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, of the Old Testament.
Is that still from what you know?
Yeah. So
that came to mind randomly.
Yeah. So one kind of a couple of factoids, and some of these are rough. So if any real scholars are listening right now, I realize I'm speaking very loosely. But so in some round numbers, until the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, the oldest, maybe even like complete copy of the Old Testament was from about 1000 AD.
Wow.
So 1000 AD was the
that
oldest.
Was the oldest. 1,000 years even after.
Yep. So 1,000 years after Jesus, that was kind of through various dating processes that seemed to be when that one was from. And so when was it discovered? I don't know. 37, 47.
The 1900s.
So they found these scrolls about 100 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And they were dated from about more or less zero.
Oh, wow.
So right...
And intact, or more or less.
Yeah,
right?
so more or less intact, and lots of copies of Bible books and other books as well. But it basically, if you were tracing the history of these documents and the text of, so the words that were there, the words that we had in the Hebrew Old Testament from 1000 AD, when they dug up the Dead Sea Scrolls that were created 1,000 years earlier, they matched. Now, there's going to be some variations because that's how handwriting works. But it wasn't like something different. It was, this is the words in the text that we have today that they had 1,000 years ago. It's the same as they had 1,000 years before that.
Interesting.
So it was kind of a really confirming and validating thing that the text that for a long time people just took by faith. Well, I guess this is what it's supposed to be because that's what we have.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the archaeological data confirms what people had a humble faith, just sort of trusting that it was faithful and true and accurate. Turns out, yeah, it was. Now we have the benefit of seeing that, but what's crazy for me is for 1,000 years they didn't have that benefit. They just sort of went by faith.
So interesting. Like, that's so crazy.
And I would say that's a pretty consistent biblical archaeological truth, that there have been many, many facts or data points throughout Christian history or world history that Christians didn't have the data to back it up, and yet they humbly held to what faith had been passed on.
Yeah.
And then later archaeologists found the thing, and it turns out, they've been right all along.
Wow.
Like Pontius Pilate, for a long time, people didn't think that was a real person.
Oh, really?
But from the very early, the Christian creed, who suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. Like, Christians have been saying that forever, and people thought, well, who is this guy? We don't have anything for him. Well, turns out, uncovered some documents and a stone in Caesarea in Israel that
talks about this dude.
Yeah, this Roman, pontiff or procurator at this time, he dedicated this building.
Wow.
But for like that was within probably my parents' lifetime that they found that stone.
Really?
And so for 1800 years, Christians were easily, the butt of jokes. You keep talking about this person. He didn't exist. There's no data.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we believe that Jesus suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. And then, in the last century, they dig up this rock, and it's like, oh, yeah. And the world's like, amazing. And the people of faith are like, oh, yeah, we know. I mean, we didn't know, but like, it's not a surprise.
That's so hilarious. Oh my gosh. This makes me jealous, but also excited for those people, everyone who's
able
to go to this. I think ways or words of advice, or ways that people can come prepared for this, or just
That's
come
a good question.
with an open mind.
Yeah, I think having humility for me, for all of us, to come with an open mind, to be okay not knowing. So I don't know what you're like to watch a movie with, Shane, but have you ever watched a movie with a kid? So we watched Guardians of the Galaxy for the first time.
Yeah. And,
some new character shows up on the screen and starts talking. And the kids are like, who's that guy? I don't know. I'm watching it with you. Like, this is live. I'm in the same room. I have no secret daddy knowledge. Once you're a grown up, you don't suddenly just know who all the characters are from every story ever. But,
yes.
but so there's a certain sense of like, you know what? If it's important, I bet we're going to find out. And if that's just a passing character, it probably didn't matter anyway.
Yeah.
So there's that gap between when you first have the question and when you get to an answer.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a short gap. Who is that guy? Hi, my name is. And sometimes it's like, I don't know, but he keeps showing up or she keeps having lines.
Must be important. Yeah.
So that kind of, I don't know what to call that. Like, let go of your immediate need for resolution. And so we're going to open some questions. We're going to raise a bunch of questions, and I hope to give faithful and true answers to the extent that they're available.
Yeah.
And so I guess don't come looking for evidence to win an argument. Don't come looking for something that's going to be neat and tidy, and now we know all the answers. I will say, if you have questions, come. We're going to explore those questions together. If you have young people in your life, they should be there, or you should take good notes for them, because we set up our young people to fail when they go off to high school or go off to college, and all of a sudden they hear, there are a bunch of different manuscripts of the Bible and none of them agree. And the kid is like, I thought it was God's perfect, inerrant, inspired word. I guess it's not.
Yeah.
And I'm saying maybe we can say both of those things truthfully and faithfully.
Yeah.
Can we believe that it is God's actual living word for us? It's perfect, and recognize that it has been passed on through imperfect people imperfectly. And I think we can say both of those things, and I'm not losing my faith over it.
Yeah. I think people need to hear that.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. So facts are our friends. So let's look at some facts. We don't have all the facts available to us. History is not a perfectly preserved thing.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. Which I guess sounds obvious, but what we want it to be.
Yeah,
but it's not.
It's written here. It must have,
So history is messy. It's going to be messy.
Yeah.
Come prepared to be disconcerted a little bit. I'm making it sound bad. I'm not trying to.
So you're just, I think you're humbling yourself. I mean, in that it's
going to be messy.
I think not all the conversation is going to be perfect, but I think what people will remember from it will be good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun too. I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, it's really fun.
Depending on how well or poorly this episode or this Sunday morning is received, maybe we do this again. We're not planning on recording it, by the way. The technology in that room for recording isn't really there. I also get nervous when things are taken out of context, and so in case people are wondering, are you going to record it? No. But if you ask really nicely and comment below, maybe Shane and I will do this sort of thing where we're recording a conversation afterwards so that Shane, you can fill in the gaps where you weren't there.
I like that. Yeah.
That'd be cool. I'd be in.
That sounds nice. All right. Well, listeners, thank you for listening. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah. Enjoy the sunshine.
Enjoy the sunshine or rain, whatever Washington or wherever you live might have to bring. And we'll catch you guys next time.
All right. Adios, friends.
That's the end of the episode, but we want to continue the conversation. Continue the conversation by sharing this episode, subscribing, or leaving a review. Connect with us on Instagram at 2414podcast. Connect with us through email at 2414@stlukes-church.com. Or best of all, keep the conversation going by inviting someone to process with you, so that you can each walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. If you happen to be in the Seattle-Tacoma area of Washington, stop by on a Sunday morning and say hi. 2414 is a podcast produced by St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Federal Way, Washington. To find more content, discover upcoming opportunities to connect in person, or to support the show, head on over to stlukes-church.com. Thanks for walking with us.